welcome to My Voices Have Tourette's, and that's why I'm the girl who can't smell. My name is Dan Zarin. Let's get started here. Today's episode is brought to you by Gamesla Studio, where we are recording The Secret Cellar, Iceland's first and only comedy club, and Smári's Volcano Sauces, the greatest hot sauces I've ever had in my whole life. But moving on to our guest here today. So joining me is an absolutely incredible person. She is a blogger talking all about anosmia, which is something that she has, which means that she is unable to smell. You can check out girlwhocan'tsmell.com. She also has social media, and you should look her up because she's absolutely fascinating. Let's just welcome Yazz Salazar.
Yay! Thank you, guys. So happy to be here today.
It's so great to have you. So you are currently in Arizona.
Correct. Yes.
It's like the opposite of Iceland.
Yes.
How is the weather right now?
It is really nice out. It's chilly, like in the early morning and then obviously in the evening. But during the day, it's just beautiful outside. Like right now, I was just hanging out in my patio, just, working on some designs and stuff. Cause I was like, I cannot be indoors. I need to be outside and just really take in this weather.
Oh, absolutely. I assume you guys didn't get the snow that Texas got.
No, we did not, thankfully. But my heart goes out to everyone in Texas. I have family in Texas too, which I was so worried about as well. But I just can't believe that even happened.
I know. Who would have thought of all the places, like one of the hottest places would get snow?
Exactly. And I love visiting Austin because the Houston area, that's where my family is currently living. And I just love hanging out in Texas. Texas is awesome.
I feel like if you got snow in Arizona, you just have like a dust storm that would just, or like one of those like dust tornadoes that would just blow it all away.
There was one yesterday, actually, just going by our place. I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. Just shook the whole walls and stuff. I was like,
I thought it was crazy. When I was there, I actually got to see one of, like, it was small, but I got to see a fire tornado.
Oh, what? Oh my God, those are scary.
They are very scary. I just like looked out to the side of my car and I was just like, that should not be there.
Oh my goodness. Oh,
But to talk about anosmia, so this is absolutely a fascinating thing. I actually didn't know it until I discovered your blog. So I was really excited to check that out. And to start off, it was recently Anosmia Awareness Day.
Yes, we had an entire week celebration for February 27th, which is the official day, Anosmia Awareness Day, which was created by this wonderful young man named Daniel Shine. So grateful to him because he started just this whole movement. And from then on, it's grown and it's been such an amazing experience.
Do you know, like, roughly how many people in the U.S. alone have anosmia?
The numbers, they obviously have been changing because with anosmia, there's two types. There's the congenital version, which is what I have. And then there's also acquired. Obviously, there's numerous new cases now with the acquired COVID cases occurring now. Yeah. So it's got to be in the millions. I know in the early years of my research, it was like 4 million that were quoted on one of the anosmia organization's websites. But I need to go ahead and check back exactly what the rough estimate is now.
Okay. Yeah, I can imagine with COVID. I mean, that must have. I mean, with some of those tests, it looked like it can just straight up cause damage.
Yeah. So there's a lot of people experiencing permanent anosmia because of COVID, and it's a phenomenon that we did not know was going to happen.
Right. And actually, so for the listeners that maybe don't know this, so you mentioned the two differences, the congenital and the acquired. Congenital is basically people that were born with anosmia, and acquired are the people that ended up getting it later on in life. Dude, is there ever any like a bit of like a feud between those two where the congenital anosmics are just like, I had to be born with this. You just took it later on.
No, I mean, there's a difference in our attitudes because I've noticed that with congenitals, we're a little bit more we've adapted to this condition a bit more. So
right.
we joke about it a little bit more. We've adapted, so we just know how to live with it. Whereas with acquired anosmia, it can definitely impact the person, where it's mostly they get sad over it. They're frustrated. It's a loss. They're going and they go through a grieving process.
Right.
So definitely there's differences. And it's not to say that congenital anosmics also don't grieve that loss either. Everyone has a different perspective, a different experience. And that's why I insist that everyone who has anosmia tell their story, because we are so similar in our experiences, yet so different as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I love that you mentioned that, like anosmics have a bit of a sense of humor with it, and they're able to, laugh at it and stuff, because like with the awareness day, you had the sneaker challenge.
Yes.
Which I thought was awesome.
That was through Fifth Sense UK. That's the charity that I'm currently a public ambassador for. And they came up with this amazing challenge that they had people who smell and who can't smell, smell a smelly sneaker, and then just grab a video, and just a video camera, and go ahead and tape yourself reacting to how these smells or not, or lack thereof smells.
Right.
How they're processed with these smelly sneakers or boots or whatever. But it was so much fun to film. And I encourage everyone to participate, because it's a lot of fun to watch everyone's reactions.
Oh, absolutely. I'm definitely going to be doing a video. I saw that, and I was like, I want in.
Yay! That's good. Make sure you tag me too. I really want to see it.
Absolutely. Oh, I 100% will, because I love that you can tell who the anosmics are, because you get the people that put the shoe up to their nose, but they just couldn't react because they can't smell. And then you had the people that don't have it, and they were just like almost vomiting, and they were just like, oh, this is awful. And I'm thinking, okay, anosmia or not, you should clean your shoes.
Exactly. Very true. Very true.
So, I feel bad asking this question, but this is one of those things where I've watched interviews with anosmics, and it always comes up. Mm-hmm. It's the topic of everyone always wants to know about farts. They want to know if you're just so glad that you could never smell farts. But I kind of feel like that question is kind of like when you ask an autistic person what it's like being autistic, and they just respond with, "I have nothing to compare it to." Mm-hmm. So
farts, honestly, for me, are funny. Like, they are so hilarious. Just the sound, just that weird noise, and the variations that can occur, because they can either be really explosive or silent. It's just funny to even see the reactions in people. Like, because I found out that not all farts smell.
Right. Yeah.
Which I thought was amazing and confusing as heck, because I was like, wait a minute, I thought all of them smelled bad. But the number one question absolutely is, can you smell farts? Like, what do you mean you can't smell farts? Or like, it's a variation of that question. And it's like, exactly, like, yeah, I cannot smell farts, which is, I don't even know what to say sometimes, because it's like, no, farts, they're just funny to me. They're not offensive. They're actually funny. And I'm sorry that everyone else has to smell mine, but I can't smell yours. So, hey, like, it's all good.
Right. Well, I love the fact that like everyone asks these weird questions with people with disorders or syndromes or whatever. It's always a strange question, because they want to know the weird stuff, right? Like,
all the time.
Like with Tourette syndrome, I constantly get asked like why I don't swear all the time. And I'm like, well, I do, but that has nothing to do with Tourette syndrome. And it's like, cause I was watching an interview with Jason Sudeikis, who has anosmia.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my God. He's so funny. I love Jason.
Yeah. And it was just, I think it was on Conan, and I forget if it was with Jason Sudeikis or if it was with Olivia Wilde. It was on Conan, and like Andy just chimes in like, so tell me about farts. And I'm like, he would ask that.
And then he's like, those are the questions the people want to know. I'm like, absolutely. Those are indeed the questions people want to know.
Oh, 100%. And but that actually leads me to something that I saw on your blog. It was in one of the memes that you shared. And I've gotten this with Tourette syndrome. I've noticed a lot of people get this with whatever they have. There's always someone who claims that we're lucky to have what we have. Like with not being able to smell farts, they're just like, you're lucky you don't have to smell them. And it's just like, yeah, but you don't realize that there's a lot more that goes into this stuff than just what you see on the outside.
Oh, definitely. Like usually that would be the initial response I would get from people because so when I first figured out I couldn't smell, that I have no sense of smell, it was a very surprising experience for me. Like, for example, like I was like, I can't really tell, like there is this element in the environment that everyone else can make out, right? And just react to it, but I can't. And so when that happens, that you're just like, people tell well, let me back up a little bit. Yeah. So as a congenital anosmic, I kept my anosmia a secret.
Right.
For like
I read about
for the longest time. So I was very selective in who I would tell. Mm-hmm. And so when you eventually gain the confidence to tell others, when you trust them, you receive those types of replies. Like, oh, you're so lucky you can't smell. Like smells are usually bad. Like you wouldn't want to smell anyways. Yeah, and it's like, wait a minute, how do you know if I wouldn't want to have that experience or not?
Exactly. Well, and also, I mean, because who doesn't want to be able to smell the gas leak, to know to get out of the house? I mean, it's
exactly.
There are so many terrifying things about it. No, and it is what's interesting though, and I wanted to ask you about this because you say that you kept it a secret. And did you keep it a secret because you were worried about what people would think, or were you keeping it a secret because I know this is going to sound like I'm making a joke, but I'm not. Were you worried at all that people would just pick on you for it?
Both reasons. Just like all of the reasons possible, that's usually why I wouldn't tell people. Like I just didn't want people to know because they would think I would be different. Right. And at that age, you want to feel like you belong. Mm. So if I was deemed different or unusual, I didn't know if it was going to make it harder for me to make friends or not. So then I learned how to mimic other people's reactions, like to smells. Like I started learning like the cues, like, okay, so if something smells bad, someone announces like, oh, a fart or a, smelly feet, or, you're walking through some like trash can and it smells really bad. Mm-hmm. Then you're just like, oh, I have to go ahead and react like it smells bad. So this basically means I have to like, how do you do it? Like scrunch up my nose and be like, ew, and like be just like grossed out about something when it's like, I'm not even grossed out about anything at all. I'm living my life, and it's just, so it's just so interesting. Like it's very impactful. Yeah. With the whole smell and not being able to smell ordeal here.
Well, and it's such a fascinating thing because like you hear about like, I mean, all of us with, whatever it is that we have, we always kept it a secret when we were kids for that exact reason. And it's so weird thinking like now, well, like I think about the fact that like if I were open as I am now about Tourette syndrome when I was a kid, I would have had so much fun with it. I would have embraced the fact that I was different. I would have been like, okay, you guys are picking on me, but you have to understand, I'm different. I'm better. I do things that you can't even imagine doing, and like I imagine, because I just imagine a game out of like with like the Pepsi challenge, because there is a little bit of your taste that comes along with smell. And like Jason Sudeikis was talking about the fact that he would fail the Pepsi challenge because he wouldn't be able to tell the difference between Pepsi and Coke. And I just imagine being a kid with anosmia being like challenge me, just put a smell in front of me. I won't be able to smell it. It's weird. Like we can't have this reaction when we're kids.
Exactly. And I honestly thought that like people would probably prank me or, they would maybe use it to their advantage in some way. I don't know. It was just learning how to trust people because one of the very early experiences I had with telling someone else was with my older sister. And when I told her, she was totally like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean you can't smell? That's so weird. And I was like, oh my God, like, this is the person that I look up to. Like, she's my older sister. I mean, she's telling me like, what is wrong with me? Like, what do you mean you can't smell? Like, how am I going to expect less of a response from other people that aren't my family?
Right.
Like it's going to be, I just don't want people to think I'm different, that I'm weird. And it's like, I lived my life up until like 5+ years ago, just feeling like that, like I'm different. Like I can't fully relate to others. Like I don't belong 100%. And because it messed with my self-esteem, honestly.
Right.
And so then later on, when I was able to express myself a little bit more and tell my story, then I was like, wow, there are so many other people like me.
Yeah.
And this is just so amazing. Like now I feel like myself. Like now I can talk to someone about what it's like to not be able to smell. And then they understand.
Right. Yeah.
We can relate and we can laugh about it. Even cry about it sometimes. Like it's been such an amazing journey, Dan.
That's great. That's great. When do you know when the first, when you met the first other person with anosmia? Was it within the last 5 years or was it before that?
It was within the past 5 years.
Wow.
I've never met someone in person with anosmia, unfortunately. It's been mainly online.
Right.
And
you couldn't smell their presence.
No.
Maybe they were there.
Probably, right? But I feel like we need a little radar thing or something to identify as like, oh, you're congenital anosmic. Oh, cool, man. Like I know you're low key, like you're hiding, but with Tourette syndrome, we have built-in radar beeps. They're just called ticks. Oh my God. Yeah, but definitely like, I feel like once the pandemic is over, I would definitely want to organize an event where it's like we can all meet, at least a large portion of the community, where we can just all hang out in one event, like make it a mega musical event or something and just meet everyone and hug them and just say, you know what? Oh, finally, it feels good to feel home, like be home with my friends, with these people, my tribe, people who really know me,
Well, it's so impactful when you actually finally get to meet someone who has the same thing as you. Because I remember this podcast started because of a stand-up comedy show that two of my friends and I started with the same name, and we are planning on continuing it. It's just because of COVID that we had to take a breather from it. But like I used to say when we started it, I would go on stage and I would say there's a difference between telling someone that they're not alone and showing them in person that they truly aren't alone. Because we all hear, no matter what it is that we're going through in life, we all hear that we're not alone. But when you never meet someone who's actually going through the same thing as you, you don't really feel that you're not alone, or at least not everyone does. So I think it's so powerful when you finally do meet someone, because then you see in person and you're just thinking, wow, so all this time there was someone else going through the same exact thing.
Exactly. I definitely know what you're saying, because when I was little, like I didn't have anyone I could like ask questions about, or that someone can offer tips about smells and personal hygiene and expired food. Like, how do you detect whether or not something is good, like without having to ask someone else? Right. And so early on, I mean, I learned to ask my older sister, because obviously she would have to help me with a lot of things.
Right.
But then, that's just the way that I started adapting. And it wasn't until like high school that I told my friends that I couldn't smell. And then, I mean, they were just like, oh, okay. They really didn't think much about it. But then if you're just trying to do things by yourself and you're trying to navigate this world with these invisible elements that you can't detect, I mean, you're bound to make some smell mistakes if you don't ask others for help.
Exactly.
So then that's the hardest lesson I think I want to say that I had to learn with anosmia, like asking others for help, because I was thinking I was an independent woman that doesn't need to ask anyone for help and yeah, go girl. But then it's like, hey, I do need help. Like, yeah. And maybe your ego isn't allowing you to ask others for help, but it's time that you do, Jazz, because you're working now, you're interacting with professionals, et cetera, et cetera. You can't be coming back from lunch, going into a meeting and then having bad breath, Oh, yeah. And or forgetting to wear deodorant and not knowing that you did that, especially living in Phoenix, Arizona, which is hotter than hot. And it's like so many instances that, that can just create these funny scenarios that I eventually went through because I couldn't smell and didn't ask others for help. So definitely, I think the number one tip is to get help. And I like to label the person that helps me with smells as a designated nose.
I love that.
That was the term that I eventually came up with, because I was like, dude, this is like if it were like a designated driver, but it's like, I need to borrow your nose really quick. Like, wait, so please help me. So you're the anosmic and they're the anosmic. Yes. Oh,
that's fantastic. Well, and that's
it's actually called normosmic. Like, people who can smell are normosmics, if we want to be technical, right? But I really I like your term better.
All right, all right. What you said is normosmic.
Yes.
Okay. Now that just reminds me of when people say, don't you wish you were normal? Hell no. I hope I never become normal.
That's the most normal word in the world, right? Like, normosmic. It even has the norm in there. Like,
I know. It's just like, really, you couldn't make the term sound even more unappealing. Well, and I have to comment also something that we were touching on before, and then you talked about it a bit in the last statement here, is the fact that because there's a lot of things that people don't think about. When people like, there's that age old thing, like, if you had to get rid of one of your senses, which would it be? And I feel like most people say their sense of smell because they don't think about everything that goes into it. Like, we were talking, I was mentioning like a gas leak. If there's a gas leak, you were mentioning like bad breath or, odor or things like that. Mm-hmm. People don't understand how many dangers there actually are that we avoid just because we can smell them.
Exactly. It's like, okay, so smell isn't just something that brings pleasure. It actually alerts you to dangers in the world. And that's the aspect of it that is very troubling for us, because, like I mentioned earlier, like, we can't tell if leftovers are still safe enough to eat. We really have to ask our designated nose for that type of help. Please sniff this, because I don't know if it smells bad, if it's off already. I mean, you can tell there are some visual cues, but I mean, the best cue obviously is smell.
Right.
And then you don't know, like, if there's a gas leak nearby or if there's a fire nearby because there's smoke. I mean, unless it's like really irritating your eyes, that's just about the only cue that you get if you can't smell it. If obviously you see the black or gray smoke around. But other than that, I mean, yeah, that's the troubling aspect of it, where it's like scary if you're cooking and then you like get distracted, which has happened to me many times. And you're distracted, you leave the oven or the stove on and you're cooking, and then like you walk out of the room, all of a sudden you come back and like everything's almost on fire, Yeah. So those are the things that you definitely have to be aware of, like hyper aware of, and obtain like the gas alarms, the smoke alarms. Yeah. Gas detectors, I mean, to really, make sure that you're safe.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, and it's also, to be fair, it's also not even just safety. I mean, there's smell plays a huge role in our everyday life. Well, I mean, if you think about, people that go out to meet people, putting on cologne, and not being able to smell that. And like, imagine going out of your way to make sure that you smell really, really nice. And then the other person doesn't even notice.
Dan, that's what happened to me with my boyfriend, now husband. It was so funny because he told me, Yazz, like, what the heck? What is wrong with you? Like, I used to get all like, I used to buy all these expensive colognes to see if like that would help, get you more attracted to me. And like those things didn't even work on you. And I'm like,
you're telling me I could have just been myself this whole time.
Yes. Or you didn't even have to hold in your farts. I'm like, it would have been fine, dude.
I love though, like, to be fair though, this is one of those things that makes you realize how little is actually important though. When you really think about it, I mean, like, okay, the way that some, like smells, when you can smell, there are some that it is tough to be around. But when you really think about, like, when you meet the right person and they just simply don't care, but they still put the effort in, that's amore.
True. That's very true. And then, I rarely wear perfume, but the only perfume I have, my husband picked it out for me. Okay. Because he likes how it smells. So I think that's a fair, trade-off, right? Like you can smell me however you want me to smell and it's all good. Like when I remember, I'll go ahead and wear the perfume, or please ask me to wear it if you want me to. Because out of sight, out of mind, right? Like I forget about perfumes, honestly.
Absolutely. Now, and I wanted to know, so with anosmia, it's so fun because of my Tourette's. I keep wanting to say anosmia now. But
we can call it like that, Dan. It's all good. We're on your show.
All right. Well, if we're on my show, no. So with anosmia though, because it with the fact that it affects the smell. Or the sense of smell, does it affect the sensation in your nose at all? Or is it just the sense of smell? So like, do you have any like issues with not being able to feel in your nose, or is that not affected at all?
No, that is not affected at all. I still have the sensation of the trigeminal nerve, right, which is that nerve that runs across your face. I can detect chemicals, I want to say. I don't even want to call them smells, right? But like reactions like peppermint, or nail polish remover, or rubbing alcohol, like that I can definitely feel on my nose. But other things, like anything that's sweet or something that smells good, bad, etc., like no, I cannot pick up on that.
That's fascinating. So you can, so things that have, I mean, they have a sensation other than the smell, you do still detect them.
Well, because of the trigeminal nerve, like,
right.
Yeah, definitely. Like that plays a role. And I'm very thankful that that nerve does function in me, because I mean, I really like how it feels, like the cool sensation from peppermint. Yeah. Like if I use peppermint oil or essential oils, I'm like, oh, at least I can fake smell, right? Like imagine that, oh yeah, this smells good or whatever. But the other funny thing too that I like to do, I usually use like Splenda packets. And when I open up the little packets, sometimes some of the little sweet particles like go up in the air. Yeah. So I like to inhale those little sweet particles and I feel that weird sensation, like the sweetness of it up my nose, which I'm like, oh, this is probably what it's like. That is so amazing. Oh my goodness. And then I'm just like, okay, never mind. It's not.
But that it's true. It's crazy. You know, that's some, I mean, this is actually a thing I've never really thought too much about, because like I've had like certain nose sprays for allergies.
Yeah.
That because of the menthol, you'll get like the cooling sensation in your nose. Mm-hmm. And that's something we don't really think about. We just think about the smells from them. Exactly.
So it's like, in a weird way, I'm very in touch with the different aspects of the world. Right. You know, that people maybe, I don't want to say they take for granted, but they might.
Oh, they take it for granted.
Yeah. Okay. Let's just tell it like it is. They take it for granted.
Let's get real here.
And yeah, definitely. I mean, there's so many other things that you can savor, even about food, for example, textures are so important to me. Like I love crunchy foods. Mm-hmm. I love just the temperatures. Like they have to, like certain foods have to be warm. Certain foods have to be cold for me to enjoy them. Right. Like sushi. I love when it's cool. Soups. I love when they're extra warm. Right. And it's just amazing. Like it's just, you savor, you appreciate these little details in life. That's what makes me it just makes me want to scream it out from outside my window. Like people, like life is so beautiful. Like even if you can't really, have all of your senses, it doesn't matter. Like find joy in the other senses that you do have.
Oh yeah.
And everyone who's acquiring anosmia, I think that would be the number one message I would want to give to them. Just like appreciate what you do have. Like if you have your sense of sight, your vision, like look at art, look at how beautiful colors are. Like listen to music if you can hear. Like that's what I've relied on to really enjoy life and to savor it, because that's just really what we're here for,
Oh, absolutely. And so you have your page, Girl Who Can't Smell. You started this blog. What was the push that made you open up and decide to do a blog about it? Was there a specific moment within the last 5 years, as you were mentioning before? Was there a specific moment that led you to go, you know what, I'm gonna be open about it now. I need to write a blog. I need to do all of this.
Yes, there was a day I was feeling very low. I was just like, today's like the worst day of my life. Like, what is life? Why do I feel so different? Like, why have I never been able to fully connect with someone? Like, it was just one of those days that you just felt, at that time, I felt very hopeless. I felt sad. It was just, I had hit rock bottom that day. And I was like, you know what? I'm tired of not being able to fully express myself, to truly tell people who I am. Like, I have to let people know. Like, I'm tired of just holding it back. I'm tired of not telling people my secret, right, quote unquote. I have to share my story with others. Like, it's not possible for me to be the only person in the world who can't smell.
Right.
And when that happened, like just something clicked, it clicked. And I was like, you know what? Okay. Like, let me just go ahead and start writing about it, like a journal, like, and just do it online, like do a blog. Like I had no experience whatsoever with blogs or anything.
Right.
And I was like, I slowly started learning, and then I created the Instagram account, and I was like, you know what? At the time, the meme trend was really going off, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, I can start making memes about anosmia. Like maybe that way I can go ahead and see if other people also can't smell. And I just want to go ahead and start a community. Like I want to make friends who know what it's like.
Right.
I want to make them laugh, because that's what usually I would do in class. Like I was the class clown. And then from there, I was just like, why not? Like, let's just go. It's free, like, let's just do it. And yeah, and it took off. And like the community has been slowly but surely growing. I've been meeting so many wonderful, amazing people. And it's just so great.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. And I want to make sure that I mention this, because the cartoon that you have, like that the cartoon version of yourself is so fantastic. It is. By the way, to the listeners, I have said the word fantastic so many times in this freaking episode here. I feel like we should have a drinking game. Just listen back to the beginning of this episode. Every time I say, well, actually, this is not really the kind of theme for a show to be advertising alcohol, but water. Take shots of water, kids.
Yes, hydrate yourself.
Yes, hydrate. It's very important to hydrate. How did you get the cartoon? Did you draw that, or did someone do that for you?
I started off, okay, so at work, I started doodling. Like I have all of the original drawings with a notepad and pencil that I just started creating, like for my blog post. I would upload them and they were just like these really like almost stick figure like pictures of myself, or like, you know what I'm saying? Like it was so funny. But then like my husband saw those pictures and he's like, dude, like, you know, I'm an artist, right? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, how come you haven't asked me to like edit these and to actually like perfect them, right? Like to make them actually a little bit more visible. And I was like, oh, would you do that? And he's like, yes, I'll definitely do that for you, Jazz.
Oh,
you don't even have to ask. And so like, then he eventually, like I give him the synopsis or just like the idea behind the drawing. Like I do the drawing and then he just like perfects it. He outlines it. He colors it. He adds his touch. And it's been so fun too, because now like we've become a team in that sense. And it's just been working out so well. That's why I'm just like, I love this. I love this part of my life, that it's just like a puzzle, like finally fitting together.
Oh, that's
shout out
wonderful.
To my husband, aka my artist, because he's amazing.
Oh, that's yeah. I love. I'm lucky enough. Like my girlfriend is an incredible artist as well. And I remember I had a couple of projects I was working on, and I was just like, man, if only I could draw. And she's like, Dan, just give it to me. I'll draw it for you. And I'm like, will you? And she's like, yeah. And then you can put it in Photoshop and make it look better. No, she's incredible at drawing, and actually, she is the opposite of you, because she has like with when it comes to smell, like she is so like she has like a sensory thing about smells. She has to smell them. So if she smells something, she like we were at I hope she doesn't hate me for telling this story. We were at a party once, and like she just like, I noticed that she was just like smelling the air. And I was like, Alex, is everything okay? And she goes, there's a smell here. And I'm like, I don't smell it. And she's like, no. There's a smell and I must find it. I will find this. And she just walked around trying to smell every single spot until finally she found it. And she wasn't even satisfied because it wasn't the smell she wanted.
What? Wow.
But I thought about that when I was like, when I first noticed your blog, I actually thought about that aspect of her, and I was like, so basically you two are complete opposites.
Yeah. Basically. And you know what's funny, Dan? Like my older sister, I think she's hyperosmic, where it's like she has a very sensitive nose. Yeah. And she's the one to always point out, because I have two dachshunds. And obviously anosmia and pets, that can be a whole different other episode, because I didn't even know your place could smell bad because of pets, obviously. Oh, yeah. But she's always the one to point out, hey, Jazz, like you really need to like open the windows, air this place out, because it really stinks like your dogs right now. And I was like, oh my God. But those are the little embarrassing types of things that happen, you know? With the hyperosmics. Yeah, my girlfriend and I have a cat. And the cat, like when we I've noticed like when the room is a bit musty, like we forget to open up the window or something, I'll notice, because the cat will start walking around with her mouth just like open slightly. Aww. And she'll just be breathing like, and I'm like, oh man, it's okay. I'll open the window. And then she just goes and just sticks her nose out in the air, and she just calms straight down. Really? It's insane. But see, now here's the problem with having pets, is like whether you can smell or not, you get used to the smell. So like I've gotten used to the smell. So I sometimes don't like remember, like I'll have like a day I forget to clean her litter box, and then the next day I just don't really notice it, because I've just gotten so used to her smells. So then she starts walking around screaming at me, and I'm like, oh, I forgot something. Oh my goodness, really?
Yeah. But before we get because we're getting close to the end here, but before we get going here, first of all, I want to thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on here.
Oh, I'm delighted to be here, Dan. Like, I've seen your stand-up bits.
Have you?
And yes, I followed you like since forever. I think like at least 2 years ago. Since 2 years ago, I've been following you.
Oh,
because I'm like, dude, like my one of my biggest goals is to do stand-up.
Okay.
And I want to do a stand-up performance regarding anosmia.
Oh, you should. You totally should.
And that's definitely something I've always dreamed about. And when I saw you perform, I was like, dude, this would be so amazing to do. And now, like, we're sitting here just chatting about it. I was like, whoa, this is crazy. This is amazing.
Here's the all right. So here's the thing, because I've noticed that like with stand up, like with what we do in my Voice of Tourette's, like we tend to like it could be described as self-deprecating humor. I mean, we do we definitely make fun of things that we do. Like we can't control them, but we make fun of them. You know, we have fun with it because and I've like there's this kind of big like debate as to whether self-deprecating humor is actually healthy for you. And in my opinion, it depends. It really depends, because if you just go on stage and you're just like like I've noticed, like I've seen comedians with high anxiety, and they go on stage and they make jokes about what they think people think about them, not what they actually think of themselves. Oh, and that's when I think it can be harmful for you and not healthy. But when we go up on stage and we just like, I just make jokes about the fact that like I was walking down the sidewalk and didn't realize my hand was shaking in my pocket because of Tourette's, and realized that's not a good look for me, having long hair and a beard. So I just made a joke out of it. I just started laughing about it, and I was like, you know what? I'll just make a joke out of it. I'll have fun with it. And it makes you feel empowered because you're taking control of it. You're the one going, this is what I have, but it's not who I am. It's just something. Definitely. It's just a part of me. And if I can have fun with it, then it doesn't matter.
Yes, you know? Yes, absolutely. I totally agree with you 100%, Dan. I think that's mainly why, you know, I like to joke about anosmia. You know, and I can, because it's a lot of life observations that people need to be aware of. Like they need to understand there's a whole other world of people, and I just want to make it normal. Like I want people to know, like, yeah, hey, anosmia. Okay, definitely. Like that's a term I know, and thank goodness, or not even, well, see, that's another thing though. With COVID, it has brought anosmia to the mainstream, right? The mainstream media has been reporting on anosmia, and people are identifying it a bit more. Unfortunately, it had to take the pandemic, but at least, you know, more and more people are becoming aware, and we will eventually get there to where it's like the anosmia awareness efforts will just be, you know, automatic in people. Like they'll, you know, children will learn that there are others who can't smell, and they'll tie this into the school system, because that's obviously not something that I experienced when I was growing up. You know, I had to learn by myself. And I just, you know, that's just the part of that I really want to, for it to like expand. Like and just part of it, like I said, is just feeling like you can eventually make it a part of your life, show that resiliency, joke about it, laugh about it, relate to others who are, you know, experiencing the same condition as you. Yeah. And that's just empowering. You know, we are the only ones who can empower ourselves. So we need to do it.
Yes. I absolutely love that statement, because I've been planning for so long to get a tattoo that represents the fact that you're the only one that can truly sabotage yourself. You're the only one that can truly ruin your life. No one can take that away from you, as long as you have the attitude to work against what everyone is saying. You can do, like, you can rule your life. I mean, you do rule your life. It's the age old thing. You're the best at being you, you know, it's just, I think it's such a powerful thing for people to realize. And it unfortunately takes so many of us so long to realize that. I mean, I still struggle with self-esteem issues, but stand-up comedy and just being open about this stuff has at least gotten me to the point where I can go in public and squeak and not mind.
I love that. I love that, Dan.
If you can go into a crowded room and tell people what you're going through in life, it is so empowering.
Very true. And I think that's amazing that's what you are doing, and you're raising awareness about Tourette's and what it's like and just empowering the community, because that's just really what it's all about.
Thank you so much for those words. And I'm so glad that you've been following us. And I'm glad I found your page, because I've become so fascinated by this condition, and I just wanted to learn more, and I'm so glad you could be on here. Before we go, let's do the plugging session. Where can people find out more information about you and what you do?
Yeah, so you can find me on my official website, girlwhocan'tsmell.com. I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Tumblr, TikTok. Where else am I? I'm just basically on all of the social medias. You'll find an account. And I love hearing everyone else's anosmia stories. Please DM me if you'd like to share yours. If you have a question or if you want to learn more about the condition, definitely shoot me a message or an email. hello@girlwhocan'tsmell.com is where you can also send an official email if you'd like. But yeah, it's all about community. I love just hearing everyone out. And thank you so much, Dan, for having me.
Oh, absolutely. And to any anosmics out there, if you're interested, we have a page on Facebook, or a group on Facebook called MVHT Podcast Discussion Group. If you're interested, please join it and maybe share some of your anosmia stories. If anything, I'd love to read them and learn more about this fascinating condition. And I'd love to talk more about anosmia in the future on this podcast, because I know I was thinking about this before you got on here today. I was like, this is a mental health neurodiversity podcast, but we're about to talk about a disorder that's not really mental health or neurodiversity. But it's still a disorder that needs to be talked more about. And it's something that I find very important to spread the awareness about, because it's just anything to help, anything to get people talking about things. And it's so wonderful that you were here to discuss this. And now for the part that no one has been waiting for, the outro. Okay, so if you liked this episode, be sure to check out our socials. You can find me at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and TikTok.
I dealt it, but I didn't smelt it. You can find me. Anosmia is my superpower.
You can find me. Tourette's is my superpower. You can find me at Dan Zarin Comedy. You can also find My Voices of Tourette's on Facebook.
Don't make sense to me.
You can find My Voices of Tourette's on Facebook, Instagram at My Voices of Tourette's, MVHT on Twitter, MVHT Show on Twitter. We have MVHTshow.com. You can also find our podcast discussion group. Like I said, MVHT Podcast Discussion Group. We just started a Patreon page. You have a Patreon page as well, so check out the Girl Who Can't Smell on Patreon. And while you're at it, check out MVHT Show on Patreon as well. And if you're listening to this on Spotify or any of those, be sure to like and follow and all of that stuff. And rate us a 5-star review if you loved it. If you hated it, leave us a 1-star review and let us know what we did wrong, and we'll work on it. To be fair, we did nothing wrong. This was an amazing episode. You loved it. You're listening. You're still listening to this part. No one listens to this part. Why are you still listening? Go get a hobby. You listen to the episode. It's all done.
Go smell something.
Go smell something. Take, really enjoy that experience that you're able to have. but let us know what you didn't like about it if you didn't like it, and we'll work on it. We will. We want everyone to like this podcast. This podcast has been brought to you by Gamesless Studio, where we're recording The Secret Cellar, Iceland's first and only comedy club, and Smouter's Volcano Sauces, the greatest hot sauces I've ever had in my entire life. We made it to the end. Everyone listening, thank you so much for listening, and check out new episodes every Tuesday.